1, 2, 3, 4. Fire is solid where it all began. A little rock with a lot to say. Up the hill, up the hill, down the hill, down the hill, down the hill, up the hill, up the hill, up the hill. And 1, 2, and looking good.
My name is Ryan Thiessen. I'm a 15-year veteran. I was, like I said, 4 years in the Navy and then 11 in the Army. I did 2 combat tours in Iraq, a short, very, very short one in Afghanistan, shortly after 9/11. Westpac deployment in the Navy on board the USS Carl Vinson, which was a great boat, and then we transitioned. I was in an F-18 squadron, and we transitioned to the Abraham Lincoln, which was not a great boat. That boat had this dirty tendency of killing people, and I didn't like it. But the Vinson was a great ship. I had a great time in the Navy. I legitimately could sit here for an hour probably and just swap sea stories about my time in the Navy. One thing really to talk about, it's the sense that the brotherhood, camaraderie, you know, and I think those are things that people who have never served, they hear it and they talk about it, and we watch Band of Brothers and we say, man, those guys went through, and gals too, went through such terrible times together. No wonder they're bonded so tightly. And but I think it's interesting that it doesn't necessarily have to be combat to bring you, you know, just the sense of going, this shared hardship and the you know, a training exercise when you go out to the field for 3 weeks away from your family, even though it's not a deployment, but you dig fighting positions and you get rained on and it's cold, and you know, you're slugging through all the same crap that the guy next to you is, and those sort of things I think actually are what truly starts the bond, that by the time you do get to combat, you're so much more concerned with your friends, the people on your right and left, than you are with yourself, that it actually makes it easier, you know. I remember a couple times that we would come under indirect fire in Iraq, which is mortars or artillery, things like that, and there'd be an explosion, and they're super loud. They're just the loudest things you ever heard in your life, especially when you're not expecting it. And rather than check myself out to see if I'm okay, I'm calling out to hey, are you okay? Are you okay? You know, and everybody else is doing that. And so when everybody starts looking out for each other, it makes it real easy to do the mission, you know, so.
My name's Paula Anderson, and I was in the U.S. Army. I joined in 1994 and served 4 years and 3 months. I had to extend because I went to Korea. And then I got out for 2 years and went back into the military as a mechanic for 3 years. So I finally got out in 2004. I was in Korea, and we were in convoy. We were going out to the field, and one of the Humvees had this little bracket that held the steering wheel up that came loose. So the steering wheel was just flopping around. It was hard to steer. So we all pulled off to the side of the road. And in Korea, there's like these toll booths, and there was like 20 little toll booths, and we're next to this big gray wall, and the gray freeways buzzing by, and the gray cars are going this way, and it's kind of gray in the shade. The trucks are technically green, but they kind of look gray, and we're sitting there waiting for the mechanics to come help us out. Well, anyways, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm the only girl around, and I start looking for my poncho to make a little privy, and I can't find my poncho anywhere, and it starts to hurt really bad. And I get really desperate. I find this like drain hole that goes through the wall, and I can see light through the other end, and I know I can fit. And I duck through the hole in the wall, and crawl through like this 10-foot little tunnel and bloop out on the other side into this warm dirt, and it's green and gardeny on the other side. It was like falling into Oz versus the gray freeway that I was in. And there's this little Korean guy, and we call Korean men adishis. And he's looking at me, he starts chattering at me, and I don't understand a word he's saying, but I try to ask politely, huwashiti, sumimasen, nanja, huwashiti. I'm trying to pull out my Korean. He doesn't understand a word I'm saying. Finally, out of desperation, I do like this 100-yard sprint down the side of the garden and dig a little cat hole, drop my trousers, and go. And he's screaming at me, and I'm peeing like a racehorse, and I can't stop until I'm done. And then I use my foot like a shovel, and I pull my pants up, and I'm like, "감사합니다, I'm sorry." And he's like flabbergasted. He's like, and I dash back and try to crawl through the tunnel, and he grabs my boot, and he won't let me crawl back through the tunnel. And so I'm thinking, oh man, this guy's going to turn me into the cops. I'm in trouble now. And he leads me over to a gate so that I can walk through to the other side of the freeway. And he's like, bye. I'm like, bye.
My name is David Lewis. I joined the Army Reserve in 2002, several months after 9/11, and I was in the Army Reserve until 2006 when I switched to active duty, and I just got out in 2013. We were sitting in Kuwait for a little while, and finally in about May we ended up going into Iraq. And by November I was allowed to take mid-tour leave, and I was lucky enough to be home for Christmas. So I thought it was quite nice. And as a joke, I went to the PX and bought a box of Christmas cards. And I decided to write the president a Christmas card from Iraq. So I found out what the address is. Obviously, everybody knows 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Took me a little while to figure out what the zip code was, but so I wrote Bush, George, Honorable, in the military way. You write people's names last, first, and title. And so and thought nothing of it. I basically just wrote, hope you're having a happy Christmas, and just describing, what it's like over here, et cetera, et cetera. And so then I went home on Christmas leave, and I think the whole trip lasted 30 days, even though I was only charged, I think, only so many on my leave because, it takes so long to get back to New York and then so long to get back. So I show up about, I think it was like New Year's Eve or possibly the day before, and I go and I see my first sergeant and my commander, and hey, I'm back. And they're like, oh, welcome back, Lewis, here's your mail. And so I had gotten a 9x12 envelope on White House stationery and White House letters addressed to me at my military unit in Iraq. And they had no idea what that was about. Well, come to find out, I didn't think they got the joke. They really thought I was genuinely giving them a Christmas card, and maybe I was. But it was meant to be sarcastic. And they either took it like good sports, or they never got it in the first place. But I thought it was really funny and unique. I, to this day, know of nobody that gets letters from the White House at their military unit. That's quite an honor. And that's my story.
My second tour in Iraq, we had a guy in my unit he was a bigger guy, and he was kind of, he was slow on the runs, you know what I'm saying, but he was a great soldier. But it was the Signal Corps too. I wasn't, I was in the Signal Corps, so I wasn't out kicking doors in or We talked, thank you for calling the U.S. Army, please hold. And, you know, I was a phone switch operator is really what I did. And we were walking back, I think we were at Chow, and we were coming back to our tent area. And there was a couple guys over on the other side of there was a big open parking lot and where we parked our Humvees. And a couple guys were over on the other side smoking a cigarette. And myself and this other guy, and then this soldier were walking back. And so I yelled out, I said, hey, do you got a cigarette over there? And he says, yeah, come on, I'll get you a cigarette. So walking across, and all of a sudden, mortars come in. Just, I mean, right where we're standing. Just bang! And I just hit the deck, and I'm covered up. And I mean, they must have dropped 10 just right in a row. Bang, 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 bang. And as I looked up just to see what was going on, here's this guy who's this big guy, you know. And this dude, I mean, knife. He was Carl Lewis, and across this, just he was the fastest I had ever seen anybody run in my life. And of course, I'm thinking, why are you running, you idiot? Hit the deck, you know. And this guy ran clear across, and the other guys were over there going, come on, come on. And he just tears right through. He hurdled this thing and just kept on right into his tent. It was probably the funniest thing I think I'd ever seen in my life at that point. It was hysterical. And then I remember laughing about it and going to talk to the guy after he gives me a cigarette. And while we're trying to talk to him about the noise of it is, all, you know, the whole conversation was like, you see the guy running, he was going so fast. And we couldn't hear anything for like 3 hours, you know, just because we were right there. And there's just so much explosive power in them that it's unnerving. I can't imagine being like the guys in World War I who sat in the trenches and just got shelled.
Hi, I'm Chuck Fast, and I'm a veteran, and I'm a gearhead. I was during the Vietnam era, and I went in early, mid-70s in the Navy. But anyway, I finally went in. It was January. I should say, you know, they tell you, this is what they told me, dress lightly, because you're going to get rid of all your clothes when you get there. Okay, so I wore these old holey jeans and you know, ripped T-shirt and you know crappy shoes, and that was it. Went down there, sunny Southern California in San Diego. That's where I was headed, January. And I didn't know it got so cold in the morning before the sun comes up. Plus, I didn't know they were going to keep us in barracks for 5 days before they outfitted us in uniforms because they were, I guess, overloaded. So I froze my ass off every morning for several mornings, and I remember that was not fun. I was skinny as a rail too, so that didn't help. But then when we finally started getting our uniforms, I said they were measuring me out. And I says, give me an extra couple inches because I'm going to need them because I'm going to be gaining weight in here. Of course they didn't. And that was not good because pretty soon I couldn't put my pants on because I gained weight like crazy. I gained 30 pounds in boot camp. I was at 132 when I went in. Anyway, and I was the squad leader. I went in as an E3. I already had 2 years of college. So I took some jokes further in that, you know, there were comments about my ass from the guys that were following me out. They kind of liked it. And, you know, I wasn't good with that. But my pants were so tight they were about ready to bust right off of me. but I got back at them in one way, though. When they asked us to do the haircut, the barber asked me, long or short? And I'm thinking, there's a trick question. Everybody else thought this too. Obviously, I better not say long. They're going to do something to me. But then again, I'm a daring guy, so I said long. Turns out I'm the only guy in my company who said long, and they gave me an extra inch on the top of my head. What they did was they shaved it tighter on the sides, but gave you an extra inch. Perfectamundo, because when I got out of boot camp, guess who had the longest hair and looked more like a civilian?
My name is Joshua Sims. I did 4 years in the Marine Corps, 2006 to 2010. I did a year in the National Guard from 2012 to 2013. Now, when I talked to the Marine Corps recruiter, he told me, like, hey, what do you want to do? And I told him, I'm like, I like action, I like going out doing stuff. I was never on any sports teams or anything, but I just like playing recreationally, playing dodgeball with my buddies, playing kickball in the apartment complex, stuff like that. So he's like, okay, well, you should join the infantry. That's what the Marine Corps has. And the way he worded it, it really made me think that that's the only thing they have in Deuce. That was my belief for the longest time, like until I went into boot camp. And this is where my funny story comes in, is we're all sitting around and the drill instructors come out and they read your MOSs on the sheet of paper, and they're like, Sims 0311, and that's for Marine Corps infantry designation for your MOS. Mission, occupational, specialty, I think is what it is. Can't remember all my acronyms, I'm a little rusty. But, and then they would go through other ones, and I'd be like, whatever, like refrigerator mechanic. And I was like, I looked over at my buddy and I was like, you joined the Marine Corps for a refrigerator repairman? And he's like, yep, I heard it's the best job ever. And then also when I get my second story is deployment, and I met him again, recently the same guy, and he came to repair our storage tanks, and he was definitely right. It was the best job ever compared to mine. He said he had AC in his little hooch area that worked always. If it didn't work, he slept with the AC mechanics in their same little building. So they just always have it daily repaired. They had extra ones. They had all the hookups, compared to my, dig a little hole and sleep in it at night and patrolling 10 miles a day in like 110-degree weather. But so that's what deployment's like. You go find a sauna, sit in it, put on a whole bunch of armor and a helmet and a weapon, and get some people in there who don't like you to swear at you and throw some stuff at you, and just tolerate that for 7 months. That's deployment in the summer anyway. Now winter, find a freezer and sit in there for 7 months and do the same thing. And those are my deployments pretty much.
My name is Joshua Podolsky. I was in the United States Army. I was an air traffic controller. Original designator was 15 Quebec, which later on, or correction, it was 93 Charlie was my original designator. Moved to 15 Quebec after they made the transition from be all you can be to an army of one. So that would be from the years 2002 to 2007, roughly. I think the beginning of 2007 is when I got out. I did one tour in Mosul, Iraq from 2006 to 2007. We worked at the tower there in Mosul at the airport. That was another experience that really shaped me, for better or for worse, in multiple different ways. One of the better ways that it shaped me, tying back into Germany, is now as a student I'm going to school to become a brewmaster. And I hope to open up a brewery someday and use my brewery for the benefits of both veterans and the community that I'm involved in or established in. And Germany as well as Iraq had a huge influence in that, because we were a unit that was from Germany and stationed there, and we get deployed to Iraq, and that's the first place that I ever learned how to brew beer. So I know obviously we weren't supposed to drink alcohol in Iraq, but don't deploy a unit from Europe or Germany that's used to drinking beer on occasion to Iraq where they can't have any beer at all. Especially don't allow us to have the ability to order everything to make beer. So I had an NCO, really, really smart guy. He was our facility chief, and he was the first person to teach me how to brew beer. Additionally, I learned in Iraq, we had an abundance of charcoal. We could always get charcoal, and everybody likes to barbecue, even in a war situation. Everybody likes to barbecue. And I learned in Iraq how to barter and use charcoal to get other things that we need and stuff, which was another vital experience or tool that the military provided for me in a different way that I didn't quite realize until later on after my time. And through bartering, we were able to get other stuff like steaks and stuff to help raise the morale. But also we use the charcoal to create our beer and use our wort. So everybody would be barbecuing, and after everybody was done, we'd throw some more coals on, my NCO and I, and we'd bring out our boil kettle and set it on the grill and add some wort extract into the water. Never got it boiling, but we got it hot enough just to get the wort extract to disseminate throughout the whole batch of water. And from there, you just throw a little bit of yeast in and let it ferment. And it wasn't the best beer, but it was palatable, and it did its job. You know, it was a really, really interesting and fun experience.
Matthew Blankenship, and I was in the United States Army, and I was in the Army from 2000 to late 2001. I didn't experience a full tour of duty. What happened is I got injured. I got injured really bad when I was in training, and I had to get out. So that was kind of I don't know. It bothers me because when I joined when I was 17. So that's all I wanted to do was be in the military. I only wanted to be a soldier. At peacetime Army, we weren't in war. I didn't want to go, I didn't want to go kill people. I wanted to serve my country. It wasn't about terrorism or anything or whatever. It was about me serving my country, and I've always ever wanted to do that. Most of my family is military background, in the military current. Most of my friends, active duty military, former, either active duty or former military. And so it was, I don't know, I wanted to do it. And so it didn't really turn out the way that I thought it would, because I thought I was going to be in for 20 years and be a lifer. And that's what I dreamed about as a kid. Then to about a year-ish into my my tour, I get bit by a brown recluse. And, I don't know if it was a brown recluse, but that's what the doctor said. And our barracks got bombed for spiders, so I'm just putting two and two together. I don't really know. I didn't see it, but I was sleeping, and it was I don't know, it really hit me for a loop because I wanted to be in the military. By the time that had happened, September 11th had occurred. I was in training. I was in the military when September 11th. On September 11th. So it was really weird to go from a peacetime Army to a wartime Army. But I got out very shortly afterwards. I got some, like I said, it wasn't the same as everybody else. I didn't deploy. I didn't go, I didn't do anything because I couldn't.
My name is Ryan Verdi, and I served in the U.S. Air Force Reserve 304th Rescue Squadron out of Portland, Oregon, which most people don't know that much about. The military is like prison, except it's a blast. It's a paradox. That's the word. That's what I would give it, because it's like something you hold near and dear. The people you share it with, it's like something you'll never forget. For one. And the trainings involved are something if you take it to heart, you have it the rest of your life. And then the other side of it is it's full institutionalization, and you were not free to do just anything. And that's also, I think, a downside in many ways. I feel free to be critical about the military, and that's one of my critiques, the lack of creativity, lack of freedom to express yourself and to be kind of independent. I think those are great things that it lacks. A lot of people are interested in working hard or getting through a real threshold in life where or maybe they have never really been at that point of almost failing and then getting through it. But that's like where and I think a lot of the military members really like to be on or ride that line, because we feel so good getting through something like that. That would be, I think that threshold is like a good description of a military member.
My name is Lauren Manning. I was in the U.S. Navy as a Master at Arms for just under 5 years, from 2008 to 2012. The only thing that stands out to me in basic training is that I smile all the time, even when I'm nervous. So the instructor, or the drill sergeant, thought that I was enjoying PT, and so I was the PT princess, which meant every time, it didn't matter if we were doing it as a group or a single person was getting IT'd, he would call his princess and I would have to IT. So I basically IT'd all day, every day.
I was getting coffee one time. I know, all you infantry guys are going to watch this and be like, ooh, coffee. Yeah, it was a Signal Corps. It was Balad, really. You've been there, you know. We had a coffee shop, Green Beans Coffee, and it was good coffee. And I was sitting on a concrete barrier, and another mortar round came in and hit literally where I was sitting here. It hit right behind us. And it's this big, super thick concrete barrier, just about 8 feet tall, maybe 10 feet tall. And when it came in and hit, it didn't move the concrete, but there was so much force behind it that it just lifted me and the guy sitting there, lifted us right up in the air and then right onto our faces, and I mean, coffee everywhere, you know. And we ran around to see if anybody was hurt or anything like that, and it was just this big chunk out of the concrete where it had landed, and you could see where all the shrapnel had hit and peppered it and everything. And you just think about those things. When those happen close to you, that's when I learned you're either going to get hit or you're not, and there's nothing you could do about it.
Exercising? Oh, well, it depends what command you're at. So my first command, I was at a Marine command, and I showed up, and I was one of, I think at the time, 10 girls that had ever been at that command. So I show up, and I'm fresh out of boot camp, and I don't know what to expect, and I'm already confused because of all the military structure, the Marine structure, and I don't know the Marine structure, and I'm getting yelled at walking to my place where I'm supposed to be because I'm not recognizing to say, you know, good morning, Sergeant, or good morning, whoever, because I don't know the rank structure. So I'm already getting screamed at, and I'm like, oh, they said it was better when you get out of boot camp. It wasn't for me. And they show up and they tell me they don't like me, and they tell me they're disgusted that I'm a sailor, and they tell me I'm disgusted that you're a female and we're gonna break you. When I mean by break, they're gonna make me so I can't do PT, and I'm gonna have to be excused from the command because they didn't want any females there. So they PT'd me, we worked out every morning from 4 o'clock in the morning till 6, and ran and did all these. I had to carry these guys on my back, and I just refused to let them break me, and I got through it. And then after that, it was like a flood of girls that felt like they could do it. So I kind of felt like, hey, I did it, you can do it. And I think they kind of used that as a role model. So that was kind of cool. That was my first experience of my first command. And being Navy, you don't work out very much in comparison. So and then I get to my next command, and we worked out like once a week. And that was it. And then we just had to make our, other than that 3 times a year, you had to show that you could still run a mile and a half.